All right, Mark, what is going on with Tyler Glasnow? Do you have any more clarity on what's ailing him?
No, I mean, not right now. I mean, he's going through the steps to try to figure out exactly, what's going on, in the acute injury process. He's going to take a few days off, and then he'll start kind of getting back into some plyos and some light throwing, and then we'll see where we're at in 10 to 14 days. This is obviously unfortunate for him, and as he expressed, very frustrating, as I think we all can relate to. Personally, I can relate to, kind of going down these roads, and it's unfortunate, but he's a competitor, and he does want to be out there. Unfortunately, he just kind of keeps, running into these little hiccups and speed bumps on these last few outings. It's something that, we are trying to wrap our heads around, whether it's the cramps, whether it's just, a little bit of a shoulder flare up. It's just kind of like some knick-knack things that just kind of keep kind of holding him down. And it's unfortunate because, in a lot of his side sessions and a lot of his practice sessions, we could probably make the argument that his stuff is at or even better than it was last year at certain points. Again, those are practice sessions versus game sessions, so it doesn't really mean anything, but there's nothing that has given us any reason to think that he wasn't going to go out there and perform at a high level. And so we're as confused and disappointed for him more than anything. This is not something that any athlete enjoys going through, and so our job is to continue to support and help him in every way possible that we can as an organization. And he's going to be a big part of what we do, and there's no doubt about it. He was a big part of what we did last year. We had him on the front end or to the middle of the season last year and didn't have him at the end. Hopefully the script gets flipped this year and we have him when it needed the most, because he's a dynamic and electric pitcher.
The way Dave described it, though, no more imaging is scheduled. It's just trying for him to figure out what makes him feel comfortable. How tough is that for the team to trust him to go back out there? Because everything leading up to these starts seems to be okay, but he puts your bullpen not only in a bad spot that day, but the next couple of days.
Right. I don't want to speak to the medical stuff because that's not my expertise, and so I am under the impression that right now we're not going to do any more imaging, because based off of their hands-on examinations of them. But you're right, and I think at this point now it's up to us to get to Tyler to a point where he can go out in some sort of rehab situation. And what that looks like, I don't know, whether that's a live BP or actually out on an assignment, but that he can go out there and take, 5 innings and throw 90 pitches, or whatever comes first type of thing, so that we're not putting ourselves, more so putting the rest of the pitchers in a position to where they have to take down a big load, because there's a downstream effect of doing that, with guys. Our guys pitched extremely well and picked us all up on Sunday. That was Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday. But that has some costs coming down the line. So again, it's upon us to get Tyler to a position where he can go out and he can throw 90 pitches, and know that we feel good about sending him out there in a big league game and put him out there to help us win a ball game at that moment. So I think that's the expectation of what we're trying to get to right now.
It's obviously a really broad issue, but just considering all the injuries you guys dealt with last year, the fact that they're already kind of cropping up again, have you been able to pinpoint at all why these injuries have kept happening at the rate that they have for you guys?
No, I think every case, unfortunately, is different. Kersh's case is obviously unique to its own. Tyler's, had some kind of weird things this year, but he's obviously have a history of some stuff too, which is not to say that's what's causing this, but I think every case is different, but nothing to be able to be pinpointed exactly, because I do think you could look into everybody's timeline of their personal history and how they get to certain points and how they get used when they get here versus the way they've been used. Some of that matters, and some of it's just unfortunate, just bad luck, nothing specific, and again, it's something as an organization we've been trying to wrap our head around, because it's not a good quality of life for anybody. It's not for the players who suffer the injuries. It doesn't help us operate at an optimal level as a ball club. and it's something, I think, we went through a stretch where we had a lot of, we were very fortunate on the health front, and unfortunately these last couple of years, it hasn't been that way, and it's something that, we would like to get back to the former, of being a little bit more healthy and predictable. But we're at where we're at right now, and we got to play and win a game tonight.
Andrew kind of talked about looking into sort of some of that stuff, the injury stuff. Did anything change, at least on the big league front, by how you guys handled stuff and building guys up or anything like that, or injury management at all?
There was a lot of talk about, I guess you could probably bucket into two different situations, where I think the first bucket is, when we call up guys from the minor leagues, what are they prepared for? What have they been doing kind of in their personal build-up over the years? Because when we get here to this level, sometimes they get used in different roles, and they get taxed in different ways that they might not be accustomed to. So that's one thing that we've looked into, is trying to prepare, whether they're completely relievers coming up, or they're starters who turned relievers. All those things matter, and kind of your on-ramping of what it's like, because when you get up here, things change, and they change very drastically. A guy who might be pitching every 6th day down there, and all of a sudden you're expected to pitch multiple innings. Like Kasparius is an example, a guy who started his career, and all of a sudden he's showing up in bullpen settings, and that takes time to acclimate to, and try your body to figure out, how do I do this on a daily basis? It's not just that one time. So I think those are some situations. I think other situations, is just pitching in big league games these days is extremely taxing and grinding, you got hitters. It used to be you worried about 1 through 6, and you kind of, especially in National League, you had pitchers, and you can kind of, throttle back a little bit. You got to bring your A game almost to every single batter now, and so there's probably some unquantifiable, stress there that we're just not, as an industry, just haven't quite grasped yet. So again, it goes back to, I think it's how do you build the biggest foundation for these guys? How do you build their pitch counts up to be able to handle, whether it's throwing, more pitches in the minor leagues in a game so that you can handle less pitches but are more intense. Maybe that's an answer. But I think it's something that, I've been around for, I hate to say it now, 20, 23, 24 years, and unfortunately injuries they're still in the game at a prevalent, at a high level, and I wish it wasn't, but it's an unfortunate side of the game.
Along the idea behind the bullpen did some heavy lifting in the postseason. It leads the league in innings this season. What's the concern level there is for the season?
Again, I think when you start talking about World Series stuff, and or going into the World Series, and things that, guys did some really heavy lifting. Yeah, I think there's always concerns. You're getting into a point where guys are already in a fatigue state 6-7 months into the season. Then you ask them to increase and spike, workloads in different ways. There's always concern. What are the ramifications of that? I think we've had cases of that. I think every team has cases of that. There's probably why there's so much variability and sometimes in kind of where the relievers are after doing some things like they did last year. And then again, unfortunately, we thought last year was going to be it, and then this year we thought our starters would be a position of strength for us from a workload standpoint. Unfortunately, we lead baseball in innings and from our relievers, or at least at the top of it. Sometimes that's a good thing, but in this situation, this early in the year, it's probably not a good thing. And so, you're trying to manage that, and hopefully that balances out through the course of the year.
Where's Snell at right now? And when he starts throwing again, has he been down long enough it might look kind of like a spring training type of ramp up? Do you guys know what that?
I think we'll know more once he starts throwing. It's hard to say. I think he's still kind of in that rest and recovery kind of mode right now. Inside. I mean, he's working out and doing all those things, but he's not doing a lot with his shoulder. So we'll just see where he's at once he starts throwing, and I can't speak to what that looks like until we actually get him throwing a baseball again and know how he's building up. We thought we were in a good spot moving forward. Obviously, clearly that isn't the case. So we'll read and react on that one, but yeah, I don't really have a ton to offer there. We'll just kind of wait and see.
I got time for two
Kershaw's
more, guys. Two
rehab
more.
start was scratched tonight because of rain in Oklahoma City. Are you familiar with where he goes from now and how much this sets him back?
Shouldn't set him back unless it rains for like a week straight. I think the
I
plan.
guess the Saturday, Sunday, Monday schedule is kind of weird too.
So I think right now, as we're fully aware of that. We're prepping for that situation, obviously because of the Mondays off in the minor leagues. I think the plan right now is to see if he can get into a game tomorrow in Oklahoma City, weather permitting, because I think it's still a little questionable. And then once we get that, then we'll have an idea. But I don't think it'll set him back.
How are you looking at this bullpen game tonight? You had to go 10 innings last night. Bullpen had to cover 8 innings on Sunday. Where are you guys at with today? How much do you need from Sauer and those guys?
I think I actually feel like we're still in a pretty good spot, and I know that sounds weird to say that, but Matt's going to take down some bulk innings. What that looks like, I don't know exactly. We'll start with Jack. We'll see where we go from there. Clearly, this is going to be like kind of a bulk bullpen game situation. But where that leads to, we don't know. But we still feel like we're in a pretty good position to try to win the game. Now, if we play 14 innings, all bets are off. But I think we feel pretty good right now where we're at. And I say that relative speaking to what's been going on the last, I guess, 3 weeks.
What should we expect from Tony Donson?
The obligatory Ohtani update, kind of. Dave said it's probably going to be a couple months until he's probably pitching in games again. Kind of where is he at right now, and what are some of the things, like what are going to be the next steps in his?
Yeah, I think he, unfortunately, given the game time tomorrow, probably it'll probably just be a catch day at best, and then probably looking to do one of his heavy bullpens again on Saturday. Don't know. I don't have a timeline right now on when he's going to be facing hitters, but I still think right now it's still going to be this lighter bullpen Wednesday, but the heavy lifting is going to be on Saturday. And when we all feel comfortable that he's ready to face hitters, then we'll start seeing that process.
Thanks, Mark.